Well, after many months of salivating and waiting for these goggles, I finally got them. I've had them for maybe about 4 or 5 days now. I've flown a number of packs and just actually flashed an hour's old firmware on here, tested everything out, to let you guys know all about these Batch 2 goggles and the newest firmware right now. So I'm Chad. This is the Dorky M40 RC channel, and we'll talk about the Hdzero goggles, batch number 2. So welcome back to the channel, guys. If you guys have been doing any research at all on the batch 2 stuff, you know about all of the differences and everything. So I'm not going to bore you with any details. We'll get right to some of the important stuff. So I flashed mine right away to the April 4th firmware, which has now been replaced by the April 13th firmware. And we've tested all the modes with everything here: freestyle, VTX, analog, 90 hertz FPS camera, all that fun stuff, and everything's working pretty good. They've added in this firmware, they've added a few different features. It looks like you have the ability, I'm not sure if it was in there before, but you can set the clock on there manually. It probably was in there. And then there's also an ability inside the expansion source menu to tell whether or not you are using a PAL or an NTSC camera, which we can go over the analog results and show you how different they are compared to the last firmware version. While we're on the analog thing, so here is, of course, the expansion bay, and from what I understood was that we were supposed to have a switch here, but they busted off the switch because it didn't fit the mold properly or something. Not 100% sure on that, but that's just what I'm going off here. So I don't know if this is a version 1 or 1.5 or whatever, but there's no switch here. TBS fusion module inside there, running a left hand and a right hand circular polarized, just to help with multipathing, even though I'm flying outside and stuff now, but that just seems to work fine. Goggles. As far as the goggles go, you know, what can I say that nobody else hasn't? They're freaking amazing. Like, I really do love them. Are they the best thing ever? I don't know. It's to be determined. But right now, they are the best goggles that I've ever used. I like them better than my DJI that I had before and any other type of goggle. I had a set of HDOs. Never had HDO 2s. The biggest thing that I would say that these things have right off the bat that I remembered was how awesome OLED screens are. So the OLED makes all of the difference. If you're running any other type of goggle, you know, having an OLED screen with all of just that brightness and vividness makes all of the difference. The face plates, these things are kind of tricky to get in. You've got a couple holes that are around the edge of the faceplate that you can see there in the corner with the light shining through, and you really got to kind of work and pry this stuff in together at the same time, you know, sliding in these around your diopters and around your optics, and then, you know, like, again, kind of pry. It's kind of hard. You got to put a little bit of muscle into it, but like, you don't have to put a lot. So just be careful, and you know you will get them in there when they are all reseated. If you're pulling your goggles on and off your head and you feel this plate moving at all, then you know that you do not have them seated properly. So I had no problems. Mine came already with the newest Linux build on there, so I haven't had any problems flashing it. I've no problems flashing VTXs. The only problem that I still have is, you know, why in the heck did we still get such a short firmware cable? I know it's longer than what came with my Sharkbite VRX, but man, like, make this thing at least double the length. I just don't understand why we cannot do that. So all of these vehicles were flown with the Boxer Express LRS turned down to 25 milliwatts, and we're going to talk about how this actually interferes quite a bit with Hdzero. I was very surprised with that. You can hear it being picked up in the microphone, and you can also see what happens when you move this thing closer to your head. If you're sitting down or standing up, I'll demonstrate and show that to you guys as well. Could be the cheap module that's in the back of this thing, you know. I'm sure there's not much shielding or FCC regulations when it comes to this crap, but that's just the way it is. So freestyle VTX on the Apex. regular whoop board, not whoop light, and then analog. This has got, I think, TBS, whatever they call them now, Pro Nano 32s, whatever. So let's get to the actual video footage of everything and show you what's going on. First things first, with the 90 FPS camera, you're going to see flickering and stuff like that in your goggles for some under LED lights. For some reason, it's not showing up here inside of the DVR. Don't know why. You'll notice a lot of different things are different in your DVR compared to your goggles, and we will get to more of that later. So this is really the star of the attraction, the goggles and the 90 FPS camera. I don't know why anybody would not be flying the 90 FPS camera. I can tell you definitely that any kind of like small racing craft or anything like that, you are just going to want this camera. It really does make an absolute huge difference with flying. It is just honestly a privilege to fly. So much better than any of the other cameras, quite honestly. It's pretty amazing what it does. I tried the 720, 760, whatever, 60 frame per second mode. I could definitely notice a little bit of an increase in the quality level, but it wasn't anything worth writing home about. The benefits of that did not outweigh anything when it comes to this 90 FPS camera. Now, my first one that I got was defective, so this is my second one. So watch this here. I'm going to raise my boxer closer to my head, and you see what happened? Everything just totally went to snow there. So moral of that story, if you're flying standing up and you're holding your radio up like this and you're getting bad reception, that is definitely one of the things that I have found out. If you keep the radio lower, then the further separation you have, it doesn't seem to pick up that microphone noise and it doesn't interfere with your stuff at all. Again, I'm running the Boxer with the external module, not with the internal one, so your mileage may vary, but that's something that I... All right, micro V2 here now on the Apex, and this is the standard 4x3 mode. Everything works great as usual. Things look good. You know, the camera is definitely not as smooth as the 90 FPS, but I just really, after racing this summer indoors, I just find that I like doing freestyle better with lighter, smaller freestyle craft, like even my switchback and stuff like that. I could care less about sharing GoPro footage or anything, and flying all these different things are not going to make me a better racing pilot, which is what I like to do with tiny trainers and stuff. So, but I just wanted to give you guys, you know, a fair testament as far as what's going on. This is at 1 watt freestyle VTX, everything working good. Now let's get on to the 1080p 30 mode. All right, and this is the DVR from the 1080p 30 mode. So I have no idea what the hell is going on here, but it's totally just waggled it and chopped it up and stuff. Let me see if I can set the frame to size. That makes no difference in this timeline. This is the way that it's actually just being recorded. So absolute crazy garbage here. So this mode, it actually looks smoother though in this DVR than it does flying, but when I fly it, it's just real choppy and nasty. It's not smooth at all. It's it needs a lot of work. Hdzero, your mode here. So you know, people are going to still fly it and everything. I don't know. And you know, when I switched back to the 90 FPS mode, you know, I was flying around just fine, and this is what the DVR recorded. So who knows what the hell's going on? I guess maybe you need to, you know, reset the goggles and stuff every time that you're doing these modes, or reset the VTX. It used to prompt you to do that stuff back in the VRX days. I don't know. I didn't do it, so maybe this is my mistake. But I definitely will say that 1080p mode at 30 for me is just a chopped up, framey mess. It's just... All right, so now let's check out the analog. And using the Fusion module and stuff, as I showed you before, I had real bad black rolling screen the first time I flew analog. I pulled the module out, I put it back in, and it's performed pretty well for me since then. This is at 25 milliwatts, so I'm pushing it as far as I can in like safe areas, so that way if I have to bail and disarm, then that's what I'll do. I don't really notice that. I mean, I guess it's like flying faster than the typical older stuff did. It definitely feels good. Whenever I tried to use an analog module with like DJI, it was just a hot mess. So that didn't work. At least this does work. So now I'm going to fly all the way out, and you can see what happened right there. Like we got this really weird, like white type of screen, but it didn't desync. Like it held on. And I'll do this again here, and it maybe stuttered once or twice on me, but this is what it's doing now with this firmware, I guess, after you select whether you have an NTSC or PAL camera on your analog quad. I think most of these cameras, at least that I have, are running in NTSC mode. I don't think they're running in PAL. I've tried messing around with that before, and you can see again like what happened, and it got pretty bad that time. Typically with analog, we would just get a blacker, fuzzier screen, and we'd fly through it. We wouldn't get any kind of that rolling and anything. So this is an improvement compared to what I got the first time, but it's really just a little bit different than what was happening before. So I did crank up the power to 200 milliwatts from 25, and was able to fly my distances as far as I wanted to. Now most of you might want to fly further with analog, maybe you don't, but that's just kind of something to look out for. Always get ready to go on your disarm switch. So if you know that you're in an analog area where you're going to reach the limits, and it typically would start doing crazy stuff, then you can probably expect this kind of behavior with your analog on Hdzero. But anyway, it looks good to me. It's working good. I've heard people talk about things as far as like putting some electrical tape between the module and the receiver board in the actual expansion bay, so things don't like touch and ground out. I haven't done anything like that at all. Maybe that is what caused my analog issues the first time. I'm not 100% sure, but it's flying just fine. But my biggest take is like, probably not going to fly this. I would definitely just rather fly my Hdzero with the 90 FPS cam and the Whoop VTX board. This is another tiny trainer, but we still haven't got that super high penetration mode that I think we're supposed to be getting, that like 540p 30 or whatever. So I couldn't have used this winter successfully flying indoors in a warehouse, even though I know some people were using Hdzero, but they also had to stand in particular places, and it took them a while to kind of get things dialed in, and then they were doing pretty good. There was one or two pilots that was doing that, but then there was also another 3 or 4 pilots that had Hdzero goggles that refused to fly anything except for their regular analog goggles that they were used to. So to each his own. So hopefully this is helpful to you guys. I find out any more stuff in my testing, I will pass it along, and I hope you guys do the same so we can continue to make this a great experience. Thanks a lot, and peace.